This is Biotecnika, and you're listening to India's first life science podcast, The Voice of Biotecnika.
Hello everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of our podcast. This is Shomrita here, and I'm going to share some very interesting facts that has raised concerns all over the world, initiated debates, and challenged scientists to prove their point. So what's today's topic? Nope. I won't disclose it now. Stay tuned and keep following Biotechnika's very own podcast, The Voice of Biotecnika. Jeremy Rifkin was once found saying, quote, "What I'm suggesting to you is that this could be a renaissance. We may be on the cusp of a future which could provide a tremendous leap forward for humanity. It may be that everything the life science companies are telling us will turn out to be right, and there's no problem here whatsoever. That defines logic. They are now turning those seas into intellectual property so that they have a virtual lock on the seas upon which we all depend for our food and survival. Many of the genetically modified food will be safe, I'm sure. Will most of them be safe? Nobody knows." Unquote. People have been altering the genomes of plants and animals for many years using traditional breeding techniques. Artificial selection for specific desired traits has resulted in a variety of different organisms ranging from sweet corn to hairless cats. But this artificial selection has been limited to naturally occurring variations because in here, only organisms that exhibit specific traits are chosen to breed subsequent generations. However, in recent decades, advancing have allowed for precise control over the genetic changes introduced into an organism. Today, we can incorporate new genes from one species into a completely unrelated species through genetic engineering, optimizing agricultural performance, or facilitating the production of valuable pharmaceutical substances. Crop plants, farm animals, and soil bacteria are some of the more prominent examples of organisms that have been subject to genetic engineering. So by this time, I guess you have guessed what's our topic today? Yes, you are right. Today we'll be talking about GMOs, or genetically modified crops. Okay, and we are mainly going to see what are the most accepted GMOs till date. So, what are GMOs? Or genetically modified crops. These are plants used in agriculture, the DNA of which has been modified using genetic engineering techniques. If we sneak peek into the history, then we will see that human-directed genetic manipulation of food actually began with the domestication of plants and animals through artificial selection at about 10,500 to 10,100 BC. The process of selective breeding, in which organisms with desired traits and thus with the desired genes are used to breed the next generation and organisms lacking the trait are not bred, is a precursor to the modern concept of genetic modification. With the discovery of DNA in early 1900s and various advancements in genetic techniques through the 1970s, it has become possible to directly alter the DNA and genes within the food. The first genetically modified plant was produced in 1983 using an antibiotic-resistant tobacco plant. Genetically modified microbial enzymes were the first application of genetically modified organisms in food production and were approved in 1988 by the US Food and Drug Administration. In early 1990s, recombinant chymosin was approved for use in several countries. Cheese had typically been made using the enzyme complex nenant that had been extracted from cow's stomach lining. Scientists modified bacteriote producing chymosin, which was also able to clot milk, resulting in cheese curds. The first genetically modified food approved for release was a flavor-savored tomato in 1994. Developed by Calgene, it was engineered to have a longer shelf life by inserting an antisense gene that delayed ripening. And of course, China was the first country to commercialize the transgenic crop in 1993 with the introduction of virus-resistant tobacco. In 1995, Bacillus thuringiensis, what we call as BT, so the BT potato was approved for cultivation, making it the first pesticide-producing crop to be approved in the US. Other genetically modified crops receiving marketing approval in 1994 were canola with modified oil composition, BT maize, cotton, resistant to the herbicide bromoxynil, glyphosate-tolerant soybeans, virus-resistant squash, and another delayed ripening tomato. By 2010, 29 countries planted commercialized biotech crops, and a further 31 countries had granted regulatory approval for transgenic crops to be imported. The US was the leading country in the production of GM foods in 2011, with 25 GM crops having received regulatory approval. In 2015, 92% of corn, 94% of soybeans, and 94% of cotton produced in the US were genetically modified strains. But if we look into the recent scenario, we will get a different picture completely. Genetically modified crops are currently grown in 26 nations around the world, while dozens ban farmers from planting GMO crops. Countries that banned GMO received considerable attention in 2015, when a majority of European Union nations decided to block the cultivation of new GMO crops within their borders, and Russia issued a ban on both cultivation and imports. The most recent data from the International Service for the Acquisition of Applications shows that more than 18 million farmers in 26 countries, including 19 developing countries, planted over 185 million hectares of GMO crops in 2016. This represents a 3% increase over 2015 and the highest area of biotech crop adoption since cultivation began in 1996. Countries growing GMO crops are your Brazil, United States, Canada, South Africa, Australia, Bolivia, Philippines, Spain, Vietnam, Bangladesh, Colombia, Chile, Sudan, Slovakia, Costa Rica, China, our very own India, Argentina, Paraguay, Mexico, Portugal, Czech Republic, Pakistan, and Myanmar. Roughly half of the global area of GMO crops is soybean is almost 51% according to your ISAAA. Others include maize 30%, cotton 13%, canola 5%, and others just 1%. The US planted the most GMO crop area at 73 million hectares, followed by Brazil 49 million, Argentina 24 million, Canada 12 million, and India 11 million. These 5 countries made up 91% of the global area of GMO crops. If we see the adoption rate of GM crops worldwide, then soybean is the highest with 82% acceptance, followed by cotton 68%, maize 30%, and canola 25%. The most preferred trait is a herbicide tolerance, which is about 57%. Then stacked traits making up 28%, and insect resistance being only 15%. Okay, enough of the world views. Now speaking about our country. So let's see where we stand in the world stage. Currently, India has the world's fourth largest GM crop acreage, surpassing China's 3 million hectares, while equaling that of Canada's 11.6 million hectares, according to the International Service for the Acquisition of Agri-Biotech Application, or ISAAA. And this is mostly on the basis of the GM cotton, the only genetically modified crop allowed in our country. While BT cotton wholly dominates India's GM crop acreage, the commercial cultivation of 7 other crops like your papaya, rice, maize, petunia, tomato and sweet pepper has been allowed by the government. India hasn't seen any new entrant in the sector of GM-based crop varieties after BT cotton and a fleeting appearance of BT brinjal. Many GM varieties are believed to be under different stages of development, but yet to mark a formal release. GM Master, take for instance, is a new GM crop in the block that is doing the rounds of constant speculation and has been cleared by the Genetic Engineering Approval Committee, or the GEAC. This is the biotech regulator in India under the Ministry of Environment and Forest, and they have said it with no such biosafety or public health concerns. Therefore, the current status of yet another GM crop hinges on public perception and not on scientific reports. According to Vidya Venkat, 2016, field trials for 21 GM crop fruits, including GM vegetables and cereals, have been approved by the government through commercial cultivation of GM food, has not been permitted by any state government in India till now. Now this is sad, isn't it? Or do you think it's right to stop these GM crops from coming into the market? What is your thought? So, this is to all the viewers. Tell me what you think about the GM crops. Should it come to the market, or should we stick to the traditional method of crop production? Should we introduce new varieties, new genes, improve the quality, modify the product, or should we just be traditional? Do tell me your views, share with me. Till then, let us just wait and see whether Indian market accepts any other new GM crop or not. Keep listening to the Voice of Biotecnika while we keep a watch on the latest updates of GM worldwide. I, Shomrita, will take a leave now, but don't forget to tell me what your views are, and I will meet you again with some other interesting topic. Till then, bye-bye.